Hi everyone. We're just going to wait a few minutes to give everybody a chance to join us, and we'll get started in just another minute or two. Okay, just a few more seconds to give people a chance to join, and then we'll get started. My clock just ticked over to 7 o'clock, so we'll wait to make sure we have everybody on board before we get going. Okay, so we're going to start. Welcome to the MIT App Inventor on-air hangout. We are coming to you tonight because of the Congressional App Challenge. They've asked us to help some of you get going with your apps that are due April 30th. So if you are here because you heard about this on Twitter or another channel and you don't know what the App Challenge is, I'll do a quick screen share and show you where you can find out more information about the House App Challenge. And that is, just a second. Okay, so this web page, congressionalappchallenge.us, and this will give you all the information you need about becoming part of the Congressional App Challenge. You do have to have a sponsoring member of Congress, and there are about 150 members that are part of this challenge, so there's a place you can go on this website that tells you if you're eligible to participate. Tonight, I'm going to stop the screen share, okay? Tonight, while we're talking, the hashtag we're using on Twitter is House App Challenge. So that's House App Challenge, all together, no spaces. And if you post things to Twitter, we have a couple of facilitators monitoring that Twitter channel, and they will pass the questions on to me towards the end so that I can answer you. So if there's anything that comes up during the presentation, please post it to Twitter at hashtag House App Challenge. All right, so my name is Shay Pokris, and I am part of the MIT App Inventor team. We run the App Inventor project. Now, App Inventor is just one of the ways that you can build an app for the App Challenge. You don't need to use App Inventor, but it is one of the easiest ways to get started if you're a beginning programmer. It's actually nice for experienced programmers because it lets you do rapid development, because a lot of the components are all ready to go for you, and I'm going to give you a demo of that to show you how that all works. So App Inventor is, in short, a web-based, blocks-based programming language. So it's very user-friendly. It allows you to get at all of the components of an Android device. So if you want to build an app that can do texting, or it can pull from a contact list, or can do GPS coordinates, App Inventor gives you access to all of those things. You can draw things on the screen, you can make games, and it's all very accessible to you through a designer and a blocks editor, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So to use App Inventor, you'll need a Windows or a Mac PC, and you'll also need an Android device. If you don't have an Android device, that's all right. You can use the Android emulator, which comes packaged with App Inventor. But to get the Android emulator running, you will need to go look at some setup instructions on the MIT App Inventor website, and I'll share that URL with you in a few moments. Before I go and give you a live demo of building an app, we have some students from the Advanced Math and Science Academy in Marlborough, Mass. And they are Gal. I'm just going to give you their first names. They are Gal, Dar, and Tamsin. And I think they are ready to tell us about an app that they built with App Inventor. Okay, so if you don't see them, you can click on the square at the bottom of your screen that says Kelly. That's Kelly is the EMSA girls. Okay. So Gal, Dar, and Tamsin, why don't you tell us about the app you built using App Inventor?
We'll start with Gal. Gal's going to talk first. Okay, Gal. Let's talk about the app that you made in App Inventor.
So this app is going to measure the speed that the phone is going in while a user is in a car and compare it to the speed limit. And when the user arrives to their destination, it can also send a text message to specified contact.
All right, and do you want to show us? I know it's hard to see, but if you hold the app up to the camera, we can at least get a sense of how it looks and how it works. It's up to Kelly. If you want to do the emulator instead, you'll need to do a screen share.
Okay, before we do that, so Gal just talked a little bit about her driving app, which she said it didn't come off because we're in a server room. It's a little noisy in here. So basically, it helps track the speed of a driver, and will send a text message to certain people on the driver's list, like their parents perhaps, if they were speeding on a highway that they were driving on. So now we have Dar and Tamsin. They're on a team challenge at our school, and they're going to talk about the app that they're working on. So speak loud in this room, ladies.
All right, so our app is called YogoDis, which stands for You Can Do It and Yoga Cardio Disabilities. So the main idea of the app is to help people with physical disabilities to be able to be just as fit as people without any disabilities. So our app is designed for lower body amputees to be able to do yoga positions and cardio exercises that are specialized for their physical disadvantages. So we give them positions that they can try, and we give them exercises that they can do like with their bodies, and they can log what they have done in the day and log how long they did it for, what exercise in the date. And we found that this would be a good app because there weren't a lot of apps on the App Store for people with disabilities. There was a ton for people without disabilities to do exercises, but we didn't think that it was fair that people with disabilities didn't have as much of it.
Great. Okay, so do we have one more from Tamsin, or are you working on the same app?
Did you have something to add about the app? No. So I think Dar did a great job giving you a great overview.
All right. Thank you. And are you going to give us a demo of one of the apps?
Yeah, I'm going to start the screen share. So just give me a moment. I've got to pull this window out. Good. And we're going to screen share. And basically what we're about to share with the community is something we call the emulator. And the emulator is part of App Inventor, and it lets us get a great sense of how our app is running, so for testing our app, without having to actually download it to any device. So while we're creating our app, we're able to test it in this thing called the emulator, which emulates a smartphone. So I'm going to turn it over to Gal, and she's going to describe what this screen represents. So what is this screen, Gal?
This is the first screen when the app is opened. This is really the team's name. And
so how do I launch your app? What do I do first?
The first thing you do is click the screen.
So I'm going to click on sub. And then we get a view of their second screen. So what's going on in this screen?
This is the home screen, so you can navigate to almost every part of the app.
So I would enter where I'm heading, like MIT.
Yes.
I have a list of my destinations.
Yes. And then,
thank you. Okay.
At the end, there's the option to send a text message to contacts. So using that checklist that's on the screen. And now there's two modes, whether you're a driver or a passenger. With the driver mode, there's less information accessible while the car is moving to help encourage safe driving practices. But the passenger version gives more details since the passenger doesn't need to be as aware of the surroundings.
So this is a very, intricate kind of looking layout, though it was pretty easy for the girls to actually build and design. And I think that's a quick prototype of the app that's in design mode right now.
Right, right. Because if it had a real list picker at this point, you'd be able to pick your destination.
Right, exactly.
And you could text to your contact.
Yes.
From that listing we saw before. Okay, great. So let's see. So how long did it take you guys to prototype and then build this app with the blocks? Roughly, what would you say? It was like a day or a week, or how long did it take to come up with the idea and then to make the version we just saw?
Setting up the screens didn't take very long, and then coding them was pretty simple using blocks also.
Okay. Great. Is this your first app that you've built?
No, I've made a few before.
A few others?
Using App Inventor.
Mm-hmm.
So Gala's what grade are you in, Gal?
I'm in 10th grade.
And then we have the two students with us, so Dar and Tamsin. What grades are you in?
We're in 8th grade.
And was this your first time using App Inventor, or did you use it in 7th grade?
We were in the program last year too, so this is our second year doing it.
Okay, great. And what do you, if you wanted to tell the young people that are listening who might participate in the App Challenge something about getting started with App Inventor, what would you tell them? Just whatever comes to mind about how your first few experiences with App Inventor were.
Well, I think it was nice because it was visual, so I started off just playing around with it, making screens and playing around with the blocks. And after I got a feel for like what everything was, then I started doing some of the tutorials, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to show everybody where the tutorials are on the MIT site. Did you find that there were times when you wanted to do something and you weren't really sure if App Inventor could do it, but you find the component you need, and then have you just poked around to figure out how it works, or have you gone and found a tutorial? Like, how do you figure out something new in App Inventor that you didn't know how to do before?
Basically, you just kind of keep clicking until something works.
Right, and while you're doing that, you have a live connection to your app that's either on your device or on your emulator. So you can be testing, very quickly testing what you just put in place to see if it's working or not, right?
But in the challenge program that we run here at our school, there's a big emphasis on the App Inventor has a ton of great tutorials. So even me as a teacher, when I'm helping my students, before helping them, I'll have them look at one of the existing tutorials that describes how to use things like sensors and speech to text, and that really drives a lot of their troubleshooting. That's where they start.
Okay, great. Thank you, girls, so much for being with us tonight. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I mean, I know you'll stay on in case we get questions at the end, but are there any last words about App Inventor or your apps?
I just want to say that's like a really user-friendly machine, I guess, and it's really fun to make apps on it.
Okay, thank you very much. So stay on here in case we have some questions at the end. I'm going to give a demo now. So I think our moderator here will switch back to my view. And while he's doing that, I'm going to switch us over to screen sharing on my machine. Okay? All right, while I'm switching over here, let me just say we're very grateful to Samsung for the support for this tonight. They have helped us be able to put this webinar on for you tonight. So we're very grateful to Samsung, and I'll show you quickly a page. This is on the Scheller Teacher Education Program, the STEP Lab at MIT. If you come to this page, you can see some resources from Samsung. So we'll share that URL with you towards the end of the webinar. But this will show you what else Samsung is offering to help support this. Okay, so now you should be able to see my screen. Let me just double check. Yeah, it's good. This is the App Inventor Designer. Now I'm going to go back a step just to make sure you know how I got here. First of all, the URL is ai2.appinventor.mit.edu. The easiest way to get to App Inventor is to just go to appinventor.mit.edu, which is the website, and Kelly was just talking about the tutorials. Those are all available here. And if you don't remember the URL I just told you, ai2. You can always get there by clicking Create. Anywhere on the website, if you click that orange button, it takes you to App Inventor. So no matter what page you're on, you'll always see the orange button that gets you there. Since I'm here right now, I'll also show you what I mentioned earlier, is that if you're going to use the emulator, you need to be sure to follow these setup instructions. And even if you have an Android device, you'll want to follow these instructions because you need to download something to your device. It's an app that goes on your device to help App Inventor communicate in real time.
Hey Shay, this is Kelly. I don't know if it's just us, but we're not seeing your screen.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's just our group here.
Oh, okay.
If you think it's just us, that's okay. You can move on. But maybe it's just our side.
Josh, this is just us. If someone else is having that problem, please send it on the Twitter feed to #HouseAppChallenge.
Sure.
And we'll see if it's a problem for everyone. Just in case someone else is not seeing, I'm on the App Inventor website, appinventor.mit.edu, and underneath Support, I clicked Get Started, which shows you how to get started. So there's two different things. If you want to use the emulator, you have to do one thing, and if you want to use a device, you have to do a slightly different thing, but it's all laid out for you here. So that's how you get going with App Inventor. Now I'm going back over to App Inventor, which is where you go to start your first project. So I'm going to go back out to My Projects, and I have an awful lot of projects here, but when you come here, it'll be blank. You won't have any projects yet. So you click New Project, and you can name it anything you want. I'm going to name this one Talking App. And then App Inventor will open up, and this is the design screen. Notice that these buttons are here, Designer and Blocks, and right now I'm in the Designer. Okay, sorry, that's because I had two browser tabs open. Okay, we're good now. So I'm actually going to build an app while you watch. The first thing we're going to do is pull out a button, and I'll describe what I'm doing because you can't really see my mouse and my fingers, but I'm clicking this and dragging and dropping. All right? And then I'm also going to pull out a non-visible component. Hold on, I forget where this one is. Text-to-speech. And notice that for a second I wasn't even sure which drawer this was in, and you can always just click around and find the things that you need. If you're not sure what App Inventor offers, you can just click through here and find the thing you need. So I needed text-to-speech, and notice that it dropped down to the bottom under non-visible components. Because I just gave my app the capability to take a line of text and speak it out loud. And that's not a visible thing that's part of the app, that's a behind-the-scenes functionality of this app. So now let's talk about what we see on this designer screen. So here's my layout of the screen, and I can work on centering things and changing background colors and all of those wonderful things. I'm not going to bother with that right now, but just so you know, you can do those things. You know, you could come over here to the screen and change its properties, put an image on the background, whatever you want to do. On the button, notice I clicked on button here, so now the button properties are showing up. And what I want to change right now is that text for button 1 is not a very helpful thing to have written on a button, so I'm going to change that to Talk Now. And notice that right away it says Talk Now. Now I happen to have already started up an emulator, and this is what the emulator looks like. And I might have to reset my connection. Oops. Yeah, you'll see it when it connects. So here's how you connect to your device or to your emulator. I'm just going to reset and connect to the emulator. Okay, while that's starting up, I'll explain a little bit more about how you can customize your app and make it do what you want it to do. So once this emulator is up and running, we'll be in what we call live testing. And that means, just like the students from Advanced Math and Science Academy were saying, you can change something in your app and have it immediately show up in the simulated app, either on your device or on your emulator. And that's a really powerful thing to have, because it means that if you have a bug or something's not working the way you expected, you can go back and change it, either in the designer or the blocks, and then test it right away again. All right, so my app's going to appear on this emulator, and I apologize, I thought I had it all connected, but I think it was sitting idle for too long. Okay, and I can't switch back over to the blocks just yet. Notice that I didn't even have to do anything. All this time I've just been waiting. I haven't done anything on the simulated phone here. So we see my button, all right? Just to show you how powerful the live testing is, if I didn't like, the background color of my button, I can change it to, let's say I wanted it to be a blue button. I'll go back to the emulator, and I've got a blue button. Anything, any kind of, and I can change the font size. These are just properties. These are things that have to do with the way that the app appears. So I'll change the button back to gray. Okay, now we're going to the blocks. And this emulator is still doing, it's still going to show what I program as I'm doing it. So the first thing I want to do is look at what the blocks are for this button. And this is what I was saying a little earlier. If you're not sure what's possible, you can always click on the things that are in your app, including some of these built-in things, and find out what blocks are available to you. So under button, we have an event called when button is clicked. When button one.click means when the button is clicked. Okay, I want the phone to speak something out loud when the button is clicked, so I go to text to speech. And remember, I said this component added some functionality to the app. So I'll put that in there. Notice the little click. And now I need one of these built-in blocks, because these are things that many apps will need to be able to do. So these are always there for you regardless of what project you're in. And this is a blank string. So that's nothing right now, but I'm going to change that by clicking on it and say hello world. That's the typical first program you learn how to do whenever you're learning a new programming language. So now I'll click my button.
Hello world.
And hopefully you all could hear that. Let me make sure we can. I don't know if it matters what I do on. It probably does. Let's try that.
Hello world.
Okay. So all Android devices come with text-to-speech capability. So you should be able to do this on a tablet, a phone, or the emulator. Now, what if I wanted to okay, that's pretty cool. The phone says hello world.
Hello world.
What if I wanted it to say whatever the end user wanted it to say? Well, I go back to the designer, and now I'll bring out something that the end user can type into, and that's called a text box. Okay, and actually, just to make it look a little nicer, put the button below the text box. And I can even add a label above the text box that says, again, notice that it just says text for label 1, but if I want to change that, I come over here to the properties. Oops, not there. And I change, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not on that. I want to be on label. I come over here and I change the text for label 1, and it can say, enter a phrase. And that's a little bit more helpful for our user, right? I can also change the font size, make it a little bigger. I could change the color. I could change all kinds of things. I could even change the font. I'm not going to worry about those things right now. So now when our user comes to our app, they'll see enter a phrase, and they'll see that they can type in here. But I haven't programmed this to do anything. So even if I type in here and I click talk now,
hello world,
it still says hello world because I haven't changed my program yet. So I go back to the blocks, and this time, instead of saying a preset string, I want to say whatever's in the text box. And I can do that by getting, so these green blocks are very useful. They're called setters and getters. Well, we want to get whatever's in the text box, so textbox.text. And we don't need this block anymore, so we can actually just throw it away. So now let's go see how the app is doing.
Hi.
All right. And I can, all right, even add some more in here and see if it works. Now this would be a little nicer on a phone because I can type faster on a phone, but the emulator makes it easier for me to show you using screen share.
Hi everyone.
Okay, so and trust me, especially little kids think that this app is awesome. I could ship this app the way it is because little kids think it is so funny to put whatever they want and have the phone say it out loud. So you have a shippable app already if you just put these few things in place. And I think you can imagine all the different things you could do. You could actually have it randomly pick a phrase. You could put together a list of different phrases and have it pick one randomly and say a different one every time. There are lots and lots of different things you can do. Some more ideas are over here on the website. All right, hopefully you can see that I switched back to the appinventor.mit.edu website. And you can either get there from the home page and click on tutorials, or you can always get there from the menu, which also has a link to tutorials. And these are all the tutorials that are available to you that will help you get ideas for ways to extend this app. All right. So let's see, it's 7:25. I think I have time to show you one more app just because our goal tonight in just an hour is to get you comfortable enough with the App Inventor interface and its capabilities that you could leave here and with the help of the App Inventor website and tutorials, get started building your own app. So I've just shown you a little bit of what's possible. So let's go back to My Projects. I'm going to start a new project. Let me stop here and remind you that I was already logged in when I got here. You'll need a Google account to log in, which is either your school might have Google Apps, and if they do, that you can use your school account. Otherwise, you need a Gmail account to log in. And once you're in, you'll see this menu. So you click New Project, and I'm going to call this one Doodling. It's a doodling app. Just wait a second, it opens up. Okay, let's go look at the emulator, see what happened. Okay, the keyboard was still out from the previous, but notice the screen is blank now. That's because we started a new app, and as I draw things out, this screen will reflect that. So for this app, I want a canvas, and canvas is under Drawing and Animation. Canvas is a really important thing to know because anytime you want the screen to respond to your touch, or you want to have these things are called ball and sprite. That's a ball sprite, and that's an image sprite. Sprites are things that can move around the screen. They can have speed and direction. If you're doing any kind of a game, you're almost certainly going to need a canvas and a sprite. The cool thing about image sprite is that you can give it any image you want. For right now, though, I don't even need any sprites. I just need the canvas, but I need my canvas to get a little bit bigger. So the first thing I'm going to do is make it so that this app doesn't scroll. And now these are just little things you learn as you go. I happen to know that if I make my app not scrollable, it makes it easier to get the canvas to show up big on the screen right away. And I can tell it to fill up the parent, and in this case the parent is the screen. And I can also tell the height to fill parent. And notice that the canvas just got really big. Okay, believe it or not, that's all that I need right now for this simple app. Go to the blocks, and we're going to get an event. When canvas1.dragged. That's an event, and it has a lot of these things here because there are a lot of things to know about the drag. And we're going to draw a line, which is also under canvas. You can draw a circle, you can draw a line, you can draw a point, because we want to have the screen follow my finger as it moves around. We're going to draw a line. And the thing that we need, okay, I'm pretty sure what I need is previous X and previous Y. Notice I mouse over these, and that's how I get them. It's just a nice shortcut to current X and current Y. So this is going to repeatedly draw a line from the previous place that I was to the next place that I was. Let's go test it out. Because like I said, I wasn't even totally sure which X and Y to take here. And that's okay, because I can test it and see. So now I'm using my finger. I'm actually using my mouse because I am showing you the emulator. But if this was a real phone, I would be able to do this just by touching the screen. So pretty neat, right? Now, What if I don't like what I drew and I want to do something else? I can go back and add a button. Buttons are under user interface. I'll put this one way down at the bottom, and I'm going to name it clear screen. Back to the blocks, and when that button gets clicked, I'm going to do something really simple. Go under Canvas, and even if you weren't sure what Canvas is capable of doing, you can come and just kind of scroll through the blocks and see what all the choices are, right? One of your choices is Canvas Clear. So you could probably guess what that's going to do. Let's see what happens when I click the button. So I'll draw something. The reason my old drawing was gone was that I had changed the program, so it reinitialized. And then I clear the screen. Okay, so now we have a button and a clear screen. I could do a lot more cool things with this. I could change the ink color. I could put some buttons that let you change which color you're using. I could even put a button that starts the phone's camera and takes a picture and then puts that picture on the background and lets you draw on top of it. And all of those things you can find out how to do by going to the App Inventor website under tutorials. So this one right here, Paint Pot, shows you how to do what I just talked about. It shows you how to put these buttons red, blue, and green and change the color and then wipe it clean. You can even make it so that it puts dots on the screen. And there are so many possibilities that I couldn't possibly cover them all. But this gives you just a starter idea of how you can get started with App Inventor. It's really that simple. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second here and see if I'm going to go back over and stop screen sharing just to see how we're doing. Hopefully my screen share is off. Yep. And if there are questions, we can do that. If there are some questions, I'll wait for Carol or Josh to let me know. And I don't have Twitter up, but I hope some of you are using the hashtag HouseAppChallenge on Twitter. No questions yet. Okay. So now I'm going to give you some more kind of nuts and bolts about how to get started with App Inventor, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the capabilities of App Inventor, because you guys are being challenged to submit an app that will be judged, and you want to have something really cool, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about what makes a mobile app useful and fun and engaging. First, I'm going to bring you back to App Inventor and just give you a little bit more of the nuts and bolts. Oh, hold on. I have to screen share. Okay. Screen share. If I say I was happy with this project and I want to go ahead and share it with the world, all I have to do is click Build, and I have two choices here. I can't, even if I tell you the details, you probably wouldn't remember them, but there are two different ways to build your app, and the instructions for building and sharing apps are really easy to find on the App Inventor website. But just so you can see here, this is what happens when the app gets compiled. It gets turned into something that can be used on any Android device, tablet, phone, even the emulator. You can even install APKs on the emulator. So notice that it downloaded my APK file here. If I were to save that and attach it to an email or put it up on a website, other people could go download this app, put it on their Android device, and play it. You can also upload apps to the Google Play Store. That's a little bit more complicated, so I will let you read the help section on the App Inventor site. It's not hard to do, but it's a lot of steps, so I couldn't do it right now in live mode. Let's talk a little bit about what makes a good app. So one thing that I find when people are just getting started with App Inventor is that they tend to think of a phone as a small web browser. And the first thing that novices do is put things on the screen that are similar to what you could do on a web page. So maybe a button that takes you to another screen, or informational text comes up, and they don't really think about all the capabilities of the phone or tablet. So here are some examples of things that you can do that are really that you know are using the affordances of the mobile device. One is to keep in mind that this thing is portable. It's handheld. You can take it around. You can put it in your backpack. You can, if it's a phone, you can put it in your pocket. So keep in mind that there could be some kind of data collection or photo capturing that you want to do out in the world, or GPS data. Those are all examples of location-based ways of building an app that have sensitivity to the location that it's in. Another thing a mobile device can do that's pretty transformational is that it's in your hand and it can give you feedback. So haptic feedback is when the phone you can tell that it's taking in your typing. You can have it vibrate in your hand. It can make noise. So those are all kinds of feedback that the device can give you. It can even make some sounds to alert you to something. Mobile devices can also, and App Inventor taps into all of these things, can let you send texts, send phone calls, keep track of things, store information in a local database or up in the web. And so when you're thinking of your app for the House App Challenge, be sure to go beyond the mini web browser phenomenon and think about not just presenting information and letting people go from one screen to another where there's more information. Think about how the phone is in their hand. They can touch the screen. They can feel feedback from it. The phone can know where the person is standing. The phone can remember things, and they can share information and data with other people through a shared database on the web or through texting. So for all of the kinds of functionality that I just mentioned, there are tutorials on the App Inventor site. Unfortunately, an hour is too short for us to show you everything that you can do. But if you were to go, so here I'll do a quick screen share and show you how. If I didn't know how to do this, what would I do? If I wanted to share information on the web, for example. Okay, I would go to the App Inventor website. Let me just make sure you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. Yeah, okay. I would go to the App Inventor website and go under Tutorials. And then notice that there's this filter here. You can choose whatever you're interested in doing. And so if I wanted to do something about texting, I can search on texting and see which tutorials teach me about texting. Okay, I need to go tag a couple of these because there are tutorials about texting. Say I wanted to do data storage and unclick texting. See what's there for data storage. There are a couple different ways to do data. One is to store it on the device, and this one shows you how to do that. And one is to store it up in the cloud, and this is an example that uses Google Fusion Tables. That's a cloud database. And there are all kinds of, so like I mentioned earlier, you could have the app take a picture. You click on camera and filter by that. And all right, so some of my tutorials are not showing, but I'll get them working by the time you come and click on this. If you wanted to do a game, here's an example of another one that I know we have a lot of. Lots of choices for games. And what you could do is you could build one of these following, they're all very, step by step. And then you could do an extension of that game. So when you get down to the bottom, a lot of these tutorials actually encourage you to go and change it a bit. So sometimes you'll see a variation or a challenge at the bottom, inviting you to extend the app in some way. So this is where you'd come to find out all of the things that App Inventor is capable of. All right. Let me go back and unscreen share and see if we have any questions at this point. So while we're here, we still have 20 minutes to go. Remember the Twitter hashtag is #HouseAppChallenge, all one word. Carol and Josh, if we have any questions, can you type them into the chat window? Now I know all of you out there can't see the chat window, but that's how my my helpers are giving me your questions. The girls, Gall and Dar and Tamsin, if you have any questions, please chime in. I know you're muted, but if you give us the hi sign, we'll unmute you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about designing apps. How do you decide what to create? How do you decide what's useful to someone? Well, one thing that I do is I often am motivated by my own personal, what's meaningful to me or what would make my life easier. So you could start with yourselves, especially if you're designing something for your own age group. If you want to go beyond your own age group and your own needs, you can do a user study. You can go out and just talk to your grandparents, your parents, people in your community, and find out about a problem that they need to solve. And you're going to have to keep in mind what I said before about the affordances of a mobile device. Because often people, it's hard to imagine something that doesn't exist yet. And so we often start with what we know, and it takes a while to evolve to the point where we're doing something really transformational. So you might hear some problems from people, and it could take you a few iterations. That's what we call the design cycle of trying something, testing it, and then changing it and trying again. It might take you a few iterations to get it to a point where it's really useful and helpful to people. So the first thing you would do is interview some people, get a bunch of ideas, put them up on a whiteboard or chalkboard, and then the next thing is to do some prototyping. Now, a great thing about App Inventor that I just showed you with the design window is that you can do rapid prototyping because you can pull out buttons and you can center things, you can make input and output, you can use labels for spitting information back out, and then you can bring those screens and put them in front of people and ask them what they think. You can actually even do that with paper. You can even do that with hand-drawn things. So that's called prototyping and piloting. And after that, you probably go back and start to implement what you found out and put that into your app. And you can do these cycles as many times as you need to. So that's called prototyping and design and iteration. So in order to find something really creative and transformative, it helps to just start with what you know and start with what you're hearing as the need, and then do some testing and put it out in the field. It's better to get something up and built and move that, put that out into the world, put it into people's hands, and get feedback, than to sit, by yourselves and just try to come up with the best idea. You're going to get the best idea by putting your first iteration out there in the world and seeing how people react to it. So I think I just saw a question from AMSA. The girls might have a question for me. I'm going to let them unmute and. Okay. Do you girls have a question? You're still on mute, but just a second. No? Hang on a second. We can't get them unmuted. Oh, there you go. All right, you girls are live now. Hello. All right, Gal, Dar, and Tasman. Is there anything you'd like to add to what I said, or do you have a question for me?
No. Sorry, I don't think we tried to raise our hands.
Okay. Maybe that was Kelly's hand. Okay. When you all, and it's okay if you don't have an answer for me, but just give it a second, think about it. When you were coming up with ideas for your own app challenge, how did you go about, first of all, how many people were you working in groups of 3 or 2 or how many?
We actually did it at there was like an MIT, what was it called?
Oh,
Yeah.
a hackathon.
A hackathon. So our whole group went. So we sat there at the table, the 5 of us, with the mentor that they just introduced to us, and it was actually a really cool way to just like start getting ideas flowing. We all had to like write a noun, a verb, and adjective on a piece of paper and rip it up, and then like each of us had to like mix them and grab one noun, one verb, and one adjective, and like decide on an app that could do it, like based on the scenario. And it was actually really cool. And then we chose one, and we kind of built ideas off of that. And we were thinking, okay, well, we don't like this because that doesn't even make sense. But what can we do that makes sense? And like we kept building off and adding more ideas until we finally got it.
Once we had an idea, we also put a survey. We also made a survey and shared it on different social media to get responses before we even started building anything, just to the concept of the app,
To see if people would actually even use it.
That was a great idea. So how did you know people would be watching social media where you put out your questions? It sounds like you did get some feedback that way.
We put it on Facebook and we emailed it out to friends. I know that Tamsin spammed a lot of her friends until they all answered, and she just kept sending out emails. Because it's really important, we think, to get user inputs and see if they actually, like, if we're just sitting in a bubble and only the 5 of us would like it, or if actually people would use it and would enjoy it.
Right. Right. And then once you got some ideas from that process, which is a great process, um, did you have to do some testing? Did you make a first version and then show it to some people and then get feedback and change anything?
We put them on index cards, so we made lots of screens on different index cards, and we would give it to classmates and make them like. We tried to make it so it's self-explanatory, and we didn't want to talk while they did it to see, and they just spat out questions. We sat down in a computer next to them, and we wrote down all the questions that they had so we can make it so people would understand it. And they just flipped through the index cards, screen through screen, and tried to like make sure the buttons made sense, and like if the I remember we were talking to one group and they had their back button on the right, and we're like, oh, well usually it's on the left, and like just little things that like would make an app better.
The paper prototype of the screens almost that we would later build.
Okay, so index cards worked well for that because they're actually about the size of a phone's screen, right? And so how did you know how to do that? Did you make it up as you went along, or did one of your mentors talk to you about paper prototyping?
I think we talked about it briefly, but not a lot. And we kind of like sat down and we're like, okay, this is going to work. Let's make buttons and call each index card a different number. And the buttons are going to call numbers, and we'll just hand that number to the user.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that our mentors saw how our group specifically did it, and they showed other groups and like, hey, look, this was a cool idea. I think it turned out nice. You guys should think about doing something like this. But every app kind of did it the way that their team thought it would be best.
Okay, great. All right, so we still have 15 minutes to go. And is there anything else you girls would like to add? I'll go and see if we have questions from the audience. I have a feeling that the Twitter feed is not resulting in very many questions, which is fine, but I can try to talk about some of the questions we often get. So let me check. Carol, have you gotten any questions? Or Josh? Nothing yet. Okay. All right. So some of the questions people have, I hope I've already answered. They often want to know, how do I share my app? Like what do I do once I'm done with App Inventor? I want to take the app with me, and that's what the APK part is about. You build your app using one of those two options in the build menu, and then you get this file called an APK, and that's how you share that with anybody who wants to use your app. I often get asked, how do I save my work and come back later? So remember I said you have to log in with a Google account, which is either your school-based account or your Google. You'll know if your school is on Google because it'll give you access to something that looks like Gmail. If your school doesn't have that, you'll need to set up a Gmail account. So once you're logged in with that email address, as long as you come back and log in again with the same email address, your projects are always saved in the cloud for you. That's on MIT servers. It's not a bad idea to occasionally download the project to your local machine, and when you're in the project screen, you'll see how it'll say download a copy to my computer, and that way you'll always have that file. You could actually give that file to a friend who wants to see your blocks and your interface. That's a version of the app that is still readable by App Inventor. That's not the built version. And again, this is all covered on the website. Something else that I often, we at MIT sometimes forget that beginners won't realize is App Inventor is Android only, and there are some good reasons for that. One is that the Google Play Store is pretty open, so that anyone who wants to add something to the Play Store just pays a small fee, and then can upload their app and put their own description and everything. Apple iOS products makes that whole process a little bit more difficult. Your app has to get approved, and it costs a little bit more. But that's not the only reason. We developed App Inventor to specifically interface with all of the Android device components because we wanted it to be fully functional. And unfortunately, the different types of devices, BlackBerry, Android, iOS, Windows Phone, they all have a different interface layer that goes between the hardware on the phone and what the software can instruct the phone to do. So when you're dragging your blocks around, right underneath that is Java code that actually can talk to the camera or the orientation sensor or the GPS sensor. And in order for that to all work, we had to focus on just one platform. And so we chose Android. That's not to say that App Inventor won't work on other platforms someday, but for right now, it's Android only. And if you don't have an Android device, just keep in mind you can use the emulator. And I happen to know the House App Challenge will accept App Inventor apps, even though they're Android only. The judges have a way for looking at Android apps. So you can't program App Inventor just on a tablet. You need a laptop or a desktop computer. Hopefully someday we'll have a way for you to program your tablet with your tablet, but right now we don't have that. You can't use an iOS device at all. You can't use an iPad to program an Android device. It doesn't work. So you need a Mac or a Windows machine set up to communicate with your Android device. Let's see, what else? We've got about 10 more minutes. So if you have any questions, be sure to send them out to the Twitter feed, which is #HouseApp Challenge. If I don't get any questions, I might have to go build another app while you watch. Anything from you girls? Or did I forget to tell them that beginners need to know?
I think the only thing I would add, Shay, is that we've been very lucky with the App Inventor forum as well. We were shocked about 2 weeks ago when one of our girls put a question out there, and I don't know if this is your average response time, but we had a response within 5 minutes, so that was pretty impressive. I don't know if we just hit it right, but we were all screaming around the room, look, MIT, they answered our question in 5 minutes. So thank you guys for all your hard work.
That's great. You're welcome. We have a good group of people who App Inventor is an open source project, which means that we invite other developers to contribute to the code base. But in the process of being open and inviting others who are not part of MIT to help us with making App Inventor great, we've had some people join into the forum who are kind of they're the forum moderators. It's all volunteer time that they give us, and they've gotten really good at responding to questions. And one of the best things about that is all of us on the MIT team are here on the East Coast, so we're on the Eastern time zone. But these volunteer forum moderators are all around the world, so they seem to be covering all the different time zones. So even when we're asleep, sometimes they're online answering questions. So that's a great experience you guys had getting a quick answer. Okay, we have just a few minutes left. I will do a screen share now that we've mentioned the forum, and I'll show you how to get to that. Okay, back over here to where you go to get started and find your tutorials. There are all kinds of helpful links under the library, and that's the kind of place you should go when you have questions about, how else to extend App Inventor or specific functionality about App Inventor. So the documentation is all in here. The forums are right here under forums, and just like Kelly said, anyone can come in here. You have to be logged in, like I'm logged in here. You can see my picture in the corner. But anyone can come in here, and first we ask you to browse topics, because there's a lot of really interesting stuff in here that if you just did a quick search, like you were having some trouble with fusion tables, you could search for the word fusion, and you'd probably get, well, look how many questions people have had about fusion tables. So you could go read someone else's questions and answers and possibly find the answer to your question. The forum's a great place to go for that. So I encourage you to do that first, and if you don't find your answer by looking at other people's questions and answers, then you can post a new topic by clicking the red New Topic button. But just remember, you have to be logged in with your Gmail account to be able to join the group. Okay? All right, so back over to the App Inventor blocks editor. I'll show you one more project that's pretty neat. I'm going to start a new project. Oh wait, before I do that, this was my Doodle app. Say I wanted to put this. Remember, I said you could save things locally, so that if you wanted to share it with a friend, or you want to make sure you have a local copy that's not up in the cloud, what you do is go back to My Projects, click the app that you want to save, and import the project. Oh, I'm sorry. Import brings an AIA file up to your projects list. If you want to export a project, you choose Export, and it puts it down there, and it calls it a .aia file. So if I did import, it would add a new project to this list if I pulled in a new AIA file. Okay, so let's start one more new project. We'll call this one Bouncing Ball. I'm going to show you this one because I have a feeling a lot of you will be doing things with the canvas, and give you an idea of a few more functionality, a little bit more functionality of App Inventor. So again, I'm going to pull the canvas over, and in order to get the width, fill parent, and height to work, so fill parent of width works, but if I do fill parent on height, it doesn't change unless I go to the screen and unclick that scrollable. So now I've got a nice big canvas again. And I want a sprite on here. So I'm going to use a ball because I know what that's going to look like. But say I wanted a picture of my cat or a picture of a celebrity, a picture of the president. I could pull out an image sprite. And notice it doesn't really look like much. But if I go over here to the properties of this image sprite, I can change the picture that is the background of the sprite. And I have to do that by uploading a file. I don't have a file I want to use right now, so I'm just showing you how you would do it. You'd want to make sure you have a JPEG or other type of, it takes a few different formats of picture files, and you could turn this image sprite to look however you want it. That's how the Mole Mash game works. There's a picture of a mole available on our website that you can borrow, and it make your mole bounce around the screen. So I don't need this image sprite. I'm just going to delete it. It's telling me to, I'm going to lose everything associated with that, and I say OK. Now this ball is awfully small, kind of boring, so I'm going to mess around with the properties a little bit. I'm going to make it 20 pixels in radius, and I'm going to change its color. Let's make it green. And now I want to make it bounce around the screen. So there are a couple different ways to do that. I could just give it a heading and a speed, and it'll start moving right away. Or I can make it respond to an event. So just to start out, I'll give it a heading and a speed. We'll make it go to 70. So the heading is like a compass, 0 to 360. And right now the speed is 0. So even if I were to start this app up, the ball wouldn't go anywhere because it doesn't have a speed. So this is pixels per millisecond. Let's see if my emulator is still cooperating. No, it's not. I just have to reset. If you leave the emulator for too long, it won't be connected anymore. Okay, we'll give it a second to start. I'm going to pop back over to the Hangout and stop screen sharing this, just because there might have been a few questions. Okay, so you're back to looking at me. Okay, Carol and Josh, have any questions come in while we're waiting for my emulator to load? Not yet? Not yet, okay. Well, the emulator is just about loaded. I'm going to finish showing you this, and then I'm just to give the AMSA girls a little heads up, because we have just a few minutes left. After I show them how to make this ball bounce, I'm going to come back and ask you for parting advice. And keep in mind, you're talking to students, middle and high school age students, and they are trying to come up with a great idea for an app. It's part of a competition, and some of them don't have much programming experience. So each of you think of some parting advice, and I'll come back to you in a second. Okay? All right, this is the last demo I'm going to show you. Here we go. Back to screen sharing, back to my emulator. Okay. All right, so remember, I gave the ball a heading and a speed, but look what happens when it hits the edge. It's stuck because it still has the same heading and the same speed as what I programmed in the designer. Now, I haven't even programmed any blocks yet. The blocks editor is completely blank. So one of the very first things I want to do is when the ball hits the edge reached, this is another event. Events are always this when an edge is reached, what do I want to do? I want to bounce off the edge that got reached. So I just happen to know that the block I'm looking for is purple. You'll start to get a sense of what these colors mean. Purple is a procedure or a thing that this object can do. So this object knows how to bounce. And I actually have to feed this edge back in. Whoops. It doesn't like that I didn't have an edge there. Okay. Now, Oh, right, I have to reset it because, there we go. It reset itself eventually. So now it's bouncing. And another cool thing I could do is I could make the ball respond to me flicking it across the screen. And I'll just show you how to do that, and then we'll end with this app. So when the ball is flung, I can change its speed and direction. And remember, these green ones are what change the properties of the ball. I can set the heading, and I can set the speed. And you can probably guess what I want to set the heading and the speed to. It's whatever the speed and the heading of the fling were. And sometimes you want to scale the speed because the fling can be really quick and it'll make the ball move too fast. I won't get into that, but you scale it by using math, like divide by 10 or something. Let's just go see how it responds now when I flick it. So I just used my mouse to sort of fling it, and notice it changed. And I can... This is much more fun when you're on a screen because you can use your finger to bounce the ball around. Okay, so I'm going to end there. You now know how to make something move around the screen, and you know how to make the phone speak out loud, and that's a lot of good stuff to start with. Let's go back to our friends at AMSA and hear your parting words for the group.
So my advice is to use the capabilities of a smartphone, like storage and the different, as was mentioned earlier, the portability of smartphones and tablets, unlike computers, and all the special qualities.
I just wanted to say that I think that planning ahead is very important, like I said before, with the index cards and with a storyboard. And I think that being able to see what you're going to do at the end, like I know we used whiteboards for like a week. We just wrote on whiteboards and took pictures of the whiteboard. We just wrote down every screen and all the buttons and everything that needed to be coded. And seeing it like that for us was very helpful.
And then, if you're confused about anything, the library is your best friend.
And then I guess we're gonna just wrap it up with three key tips from our team. So here we go, Tamsin.
Have fun.
Have fun. Show your creativity.
And don't give up.
All right, perfect. That's exactly what it sums up everything about App Inventor. You're going to fail a little bit. Keep trying. Have fun. And don't give up. You'll figure it out. And use the library, right? Isn't that what you said, Tamsin? Go to the App Inventor library when you're really stuck. All right, we need to wrap up. We're actually a tiny bit over. Thank you all for joining us. A special thank you to the girls from Advanced Math and Science Academy and to their teacher, Kelly Powers, for getting this together so quickly. Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome. Anytime, Shay.
All right, I also want to thank Samsung, who sponsored this webinar tonight, and remind you that the website to go find out more about this Congressional App Challenge is studentappchallenge.house.gov. So that's studentappchallenge, all one word, .house.gov. And if you could just Google the House App Challenge, you'll find the URL. Also on our website, on the main page of the MIT App Inventor website, we'll have a link to that page that I shared in the beginning that has some links to Samsung's resources. Okay, and then you can find out everything you need about App Inventor by going to appinventor.mit.edu. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you all for joining us. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks again, girls. Have a good night.
Night.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.